So when you did IVF, did that change the trajectory of your dating life?
Well, it was a lot less pressure for me moving forward, as far as like being able to date more casually and not having to feel like I had to commit to somebody immediately because I was going to need to procreate with them. I mean, it definitely relieved a lot of stress.
The number one reason that our clients come to us to freeze their eggs or to pursue egg freezing is because of relationship issues. And so it's very, very common that women decide, you know what, now's the time. Because I don't sort of want to be beholden to some pretend timeline. I want to take matters into my own hands.
It's liberating.
You
know, it's really, because it's like, I may want to waste my time with this guy for a year. He may be really good in bed. And I definitely don't want him to be the father of my kids. But I'd like to ride this till I don't want to ride it anymore. And then
freeze your eggs.
And then freeze my eggs, and I don't have to worry about it as much.
Hi, it's Matchmaker Maria. Welcome to the Ask a Matchmaker podcast. Today I'm joined by this week's co-host, stand-up comedian, host of the Coffee Talk podcast, Tara Canistraci. Welcome back, Tara.
Thank you, Maria, with the good hair.
I know. Do you like this hair?
I'm liking it.
All right. I have to give a shout out. So do you know like the Revlon brush?
No.
Like the Revlon
yeah.
hairbrush? So I've had that for years, and I usually dry my hair like that, and then I'll straighten it with my straightener and curl it, like I'll style it that way. But this year I decided, because I go to Dry Bar a lot, and they're selling their Dry Bar.
Is it like a blow dryer brush?
It's a blow dryer brush, right? So it's $120 or something like that. Don't hold me to the price. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I like my Revlon brush. If I don't like this, I'll return it. And as I'm brushing my hair in the beginning, I'm feeling like, shit, I can't believe I spent $120 on this. I'm so stupid. I'm going to return it. And then literally like 3 minutes later, I'm like, oh, wait, I feel a difference. My hair is becoming silkier. Dude,
I'm gorgeous.
Dude, I know. This took 15 minutes.
And you got a head of hair on you.
I got thick hair. This took 15 minutes. I didn't have to use a straightener after. And I did this yesterday. I slept on this.
Wow.
And that is a word from our sponsor.
Yeah. Dry Bar. Let's go. Anyway, so I'm a big fan of the Dry Bar hairbrush dryer. Good purchase for 2025. All right. Before we get into this episode, I want to remind you that this podcast is for everyone, single or in a relationship. This podcast is about giving no nonsense insights into dating, relationships, compatibility, and love in modern times. Remember, dating is a privilege. Your grandparents and maybe your parents didn't get to date. They just had to get married. But you have the choice. You get to choose to have great experiences, and hopefully this podcast gets you one step closer to that. This week's episode stems from some recent questions that I have received during Ask a Matchmaker Wednesdays. If you don't know what that is, go follow me on Instagram and wait till Wednesday, I suppose. But it sparked a really important conversation about egg freezing, IVF, and how to empower your dating journey while thinking about your reproductive opportunities. So we want to talk about this in depth today, and to join us to break it down is Matta, founder of the Conceivable Reproductive, a company that helps women access affordable and high quality fertility treatments abroad. Monica, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited because one of my cousins actually went to Italy.
Oh, yeah?
For IVF treatments. And I was like, how much was that? And she's like, $2,000. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. And it's really not something I knew until I really went down this journey of sort of pursuing my own fertility journey and then ultimately founding Conceivable. But that's really what we're after, is that, as the founder, my whole mission, it really is a passion project of trying to increase access to fertility services. That aren't just high quality. Access also means that I can afford them. So that's really the long and short.
And how do you currently work with people?
So most women find us through our sort of direct to consumer model. So women find us, primarily through our social platforms or through sort of an organic, internet searching. And each woman who comes to us is paired with a personal concierge. Oftentimes that concierge is me. It's not always. And we connect them to clinics abroad, just sort of depending on their needs. We currently participate in 2 countries, Spain and Greece. And We coordinate their full care, both their clinical assessment here in the US,
Yeah.
getting care abroad. And then obviously, you know, if you're going abroad, the new sort of challenge is that you don't live abroad. So we also create in-country experiences, including we get them discounts on lodging, we get them access to facials. They want to get a Botox while they're there, they can. It's already so much cheaper. We get them, you know, like 20% off of that kind of stuff. Yoga, meditation, all that stuff. So it really is sort of a
Can
vacation.
I just go?
Yeah, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's intended to sort of be, you know, for people who have gone through fertility, it can be a really stressful
Right.
experience. And so the idea that you can go somewhere, sort of experience it as though it's a vacation and have your whole world really just coming back as a better version of yourself, really focused on taking that time for yourself. It's pretty transformative.
All right. So let's break it down. Let's go to the basics. What is egg freezing and IVF?
Yes. So in a natural menstrual cycle, you have several follicles available at any given menstrual cycle, and one follicle becomes the dominant follicle. All of the hormones in your body sort of grow to develop that follicle, and ultimately it becomes available for ovulation. If you don't become pregnant, then it descends and ultimately you have a period.
Right. Okay.
And through the process of egg freezing, what happens is that instead of just having one dominant follicle develop, you encourage the growth of all of the follicles by taking hormones that naturally exist in your body.
Okay.
And it ensures that, you know, multiple follicles are growing. So then we can capitalize on your fertility in that moment. And we, instead of just having the opportunity for one follicle, all follicles would be available. So one of the most common questions that we get is, does egg freezing sort of rob me of my future fertility? If I'm taking these eggs away, does that mean that I can't use them in the future? And in fact, because all egg freezing really is capturing follicles that would otherwise sort of
Not producing.
yeah, or disintegrate into your body in any normal cycle, that we can capture those eggs for future use. IVF, many people don't know this, but IVF is really just the second part of egg freezing. If you go through IVF, you're also going through an egg retrieval process. So it's the process by which we stimulate those eggs. And
With sperm?
so we stimulate the eggs to grow in your body, and then we collect those eggs.
Okay.
And then we fertilize those eggs outside of your body with sperm. And then the resulting fertilized eggs are grown in a lab. And ultimately, some of those eggs will progress to the stage of an embryo or a blastocyst. And those are ultimately the embryos that are used in an IVF transfer.
And then what would happen is a woman would go in and would be implanted with the embryos.
Exactly right. So an embryo transfer feels a lot like a regular gynecologic exam.
Oh, so awkward as hell.
Yeah.
Got it.
A little bit. Yeah. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and they transfer the embryo to the top of your uterus.
Do they use like a camera? Like, how do they know where to put it?
Yeah, it's like a really long, skinny tube that they insert into
Through the cervix.
Exactly right.
Are you asleep while this is happening, or are you awake?
They can sedate you, but oftentimes you're not sedated at all. Depending on your anatomy, some women do require sedation. But in most cases, it's relatively painless. It can be a little bit uncomfortable.
Is getting like an IUD more painful?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Before they do the transfer, you know, now you have the embryos. Are they being tested for, you know, genetic deformities, screened for, like, let's say maybe you have like the cancer gene or, you know, whatever genes that exists that could, you know, affect the baby.
So genetic testing is common, but it's not required.
Okay.
And one important thing, the most common genetic testing is called PGTA testing.
Okay.
Which is essentially testing for an embryo that might be aneuploid or genetically abnormal in a way that it doesn't have all of the correct chromosomes. And chromosomal abnormalities will almost always result in either a miscarriage or in some sort of genetic disorder in the resulting child. So things like Down syndrome or other things are a result of genetic deformity. Yeah. And one important thing to know is that genetic testing is not required.
Right.
But what is true of genetic testing is that if you ultimately do proceed with genetic testing, this is true in the US or abroad, that if you find that you have an aneuploid or a missing or abnormal chromosome, that your doctor will not be permitted to actually transfer that embryo. So you can't choose to proceed at many clinics in the US and certainly
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you're not required to do it, but if you do it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
How about gender? Like, is that allowed to choose the gender of what gets implemented?
In the US or abroad? Yeah. So
Both?
yeah. So in the US, it's absolutely allowed.
Really?
Picking the gender is allowed. Abroad, it varies by country.
What country is like, absolutely not, you get what you get?
In truth, the vast majority of them. The vast majority of clinics abroad don't permit you to select the gender for sort of a whole host of sort of, some of it is sort of religious influence. Some of it is that some countries have sordid histories of sort of favoring some genders versus others. And so there's a lot of sort of protection around gender selection in that way, and as like population control in countries that might sort of favor one gender over another.
I get what you're saying. It's interesting because I'm thinking about someone, I don't know them, this is just like hot tea from a friend, but they already had 5 girls, and I guess they mentioned to our mutual friend like, oh, I'm getting IVF treatments, and I'm like, for what? You're clearly fertile.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you're getting IVF treatments? And I think they went for the boy. And I've always wondered like, oh, I wonder if because they did get a boy with their 6th kid. And I just always wondered like, I wonder if you got to choose the gender or not.
Yeah.
And they did it in the US. And I was like, all right.
You can absolutely.
Because gender comes through the male sperm.
Yeah.
So.
And it's part of that genetic testing process. So some of the genetic testing will help you understand chromosomal abnormalities.
Right.
But the other side of the genetic testing helps you understand the gender of the
XY.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all that stuff. So Tara, I know that this is a little personal for you too, because you're going through your own IVF journey.
Well, I started my IVF journey at like 33, 34 years old.
Right.
I was actually, how old was I? Yeah, I was about 34 years old when I did it. Yeah.
When you got your eggs frozen?
When I got my eggs frozen.
Okay. And how are those eggs doing now?
I mean, they're on ice at NYU. They're chilling. Not to, literally.
What does it cost to have your eggs?
At the time, NYU 10 years ago was like $10,000, I think I spent.
A
10
year?
years ago. No, through the process.
Okay.
And then $1,000 a year for storage, which I think they might have upped it this year.
Mm-hmm.
It may be more now. Maybe I don't remember.
Okay.
They may have upped it. It was usually $1,000 per year to store them.
Wow.
If you think about it, that was 10 years ago. That's $20,000 that I've just listed. You know, and things only more expensive, I'd imagine now today.
Why did you do your egg freezing at 33?
So it wasn't something I'd ever thought of. I had an ovary torsion at 32, which means my ovary actually flipped inside my body through a cyst that had gotten really big. And I had a wonderful doctor. I went to the emergency room, and a doctor kept me under. I'll never forget him, Dr. Corey. And he kept the blood going to the organ so he could save the organ because they were going to remove it. And I went and sat in his office for a follow-up, and they had it on the TV there. And I thought to myself, here I am, 32. This already had an issue. And even if you don't, I knew then I didn't want kids in my 30s. Had I met Prince Charming and decided I want to be married, I still wouldn't have wanted kids in my 30s. I had different things I wanted to achieve that I knew the timing, not that it could ever really be right for a kid, but I knew it wasn't going to be right in my 30s. And I was like, this isn't going to be my decade. And even though I almost was adamant that I never wanted children at that point, I was like, let me not limit myself and let me invest in this for myself. But it was a big investment and a very difficult procedure without emotional support or things. Like I would have loved a facial or a trip or something, or anything. It really, not that 10 years ago or even more now was the time, was it new then, but it was definitely a hard process to go through alone.
I also feel like it's talked about a lot more now than it was 10
Back
years
then,
ago.
people like, what are you doing?
Right. So now you're in your mid 40s, close to it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you you're ready to use those eggs?
So I was I'm on tour this year, and I was like, you know what? The end of the year, I'm ready. But I've been toying with, and I should have and wish I would have acted a year and a half ago when I first thought about it. And I was like, let me go for some testing to see if we could even do another retrieval.
Okay.
And at this point, maybe I can do embryos because they are better with the freezing process from what I think. And it's just been interesting conversations on the phone. I didn't love NYU to begin with, and I'm not slander. It's just it wasn't the best process for me. But I did speak to my GYN who was like, you really need a really good embryologist, and they're a great facility for that. You know, they're a teaching hospital. So I did call somebody that she had recommended, but even the conversations just with the secretaries alone sometimes, I can't explain it. It's like a degrading situation, or maybe it's not even just the way I'm feeling. Like some of the questions were like, so why did you only freeze eggs last time and not embryos? I was like, because I was single, and guess what? Brad Pitt wasn't in town to sprinkle them the way I always imagined he would. So I left them unfertilized up at NYU, honey. Like, or she's like, you know.
Wait, how did you actually answer that question?
Like that.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, she did chuckle at that. Like the initial thing, she didn't laugh. Like she was having a problem with the system for my intake, and she's like, should we just stop? Like she was like frazzled. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Let's. I won't even have kids. This was a good
I know that.
You know, it was just like one of those things where I was like, it couldn't get through the phone call.
Did you
let
cry
alone
into a pillow
go
after?
through? No, but it was like I was like, Tara, bite your tongue, Tara, bite your tongue, and she was like, so you never tried to get pregnant before? And I was like, would you believe? No, I actually put a career first. Like I was like, stop answering her literally. I was like, no, I'm trying to get a Netflix special. So honestly, I really can't. I couldn't have the time to get pregnant and do that. And she was just like, okay. Like, I'm like, are you writing that down? Like, do you think that's a real answer? Like, why is this my intake? And she was very honest. And you know what? I think the reason what triggered me the most, Monica and Maria, is that she had said to me when I called, she said, oh, what's your date of birth? And she goes, The doctor really only likes to see women 42 and younger. I'm like, this feels like this is a great introduction to this doctor's office. And I was like, okay. So then she's like, but I could do your intake. And I was like, for what? And she's like, well, I need your health insurance. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Does your health insurance cover it?
My health insurance didn't cover it 10 years ago. I doubt it. I don't know to what extent it would cover it now.
Okay.
Well, I have a really bad joke about that, but I won't do it. No, I mean, I have United Healthcare now. They should be letting a lot of things slide. But okay, so you can cut that if you want.
They don't cover it.
But it'll cover it.
They don't cover it.
They don't cover it. Yeah, no, they're not going to cover it. Nor do I even expect them to at this point, right?
Yeah.
I was fine with going another investment. It's a decade later. I'm making money. Like, I'll do it. But just the conversation was one of those where I hung up, and it literally made me go, do I want this? Like, how bad do I want it that I'm going to have to deal with this?
What did your partner say?
You know, my husband would love to never have, he says he doesn't want children or he'd be fine without it. It's really, even married, it's not about him. At this point, it's like, I need to know if I'm going to want this, if this is my insurance plan. And he is of the mindset of like, if you want it, I'll do it. I don't want to be responsible for anybody really doing it under those terms. So I was like, let me see if I could do it again one more time for me. This year, I don't care my age.
But you'd be fertilizing it with his sperm.
If I did fertilize them, right.
But you have unprotected sex at home.
Yes.
And have you been...
Cautious. Careful.
What do you mean?
Like, I haven't tried to get pregnant this year.
Why not?
Because I'm on tour. And I just don't think I wanted
that
to wait
doesn't
till the
happen
end
overnight.
of the year. I know.
You could be like the next stand-up comedian with a pregnant belly
Oh,
on the
no,
stage.
100%. But
Man,
I
you'd be
just
so
was,
good too.
It was one of those things where I was like, I just want to be
Listen,
the
sex
dictator.
with a purpose is fun. It's anxiety-driven, though.
Yeah.
It took me and my husband 2 months to conceive, but it would have taken maybe a week only because he was suffering through like stage fright, because sex with a purpose is a different kind of sex.
Well, one time it happened, and I was like, and I was having like an out of body experience. So I was like, I don't want it in me right now. I don't. I was like, well, this is not like my husband was just like petrified. So I think he's so scared after that one time when I was like, no. So I don't know. But it's just about the process. And it's not, I really feel like what Monica's doing is bridging the gap between the person, the woman who's already in a vulnerable state, even if you don't want it. Like, I didn't even want kids in my 30s. When I was going to doctor's office, I'm like, get the Celine Dion music off. We're here for the insurance. Like, it's like so many women need that somebody to bridge that gap because it is emotional. Whether you want children in that moment or not, you're also giving yourself hormones that add to that emotion. It's science.
Right. So
it's like, had I known about a company like Conceivable, it would have been such a different process for me. Maybe I would have even done it earlier again if it wasn't such a miserable experience the first time around for me.
And it starts with the intake.
It starts with intake. It's, bedside manner and not feeling like you're in a chop shop. But a lot of it is cold. You have to remember, a lot of these places, some of the best of them you feel like you're in a factory. Because it's like this for them, where it's like this big emotional experience for you when you're going through something. And a lot of women really want to have a baby in that moment. So it's that part doesn't meet, your emotion. At least for me, I'm saying do it 100%. There is nothing that stopped me from having the comedy career I wanted. If you want a baby, nothing should stop you from trying to do that and make that happen for yourself. I'm just being real with like, the process is not easy. So
do you think this is the year you're going to do it?
I think I'm going to try.
So do you think you're going to retrieve and try
I want to do it through science. I want to do it through genetic testing at this point. Yeah.
No, I totally get you on that.
There's, if I got pregnant naturally and they were, able to tell me early on something was wrong, it would be my choice to want to keep it. That's my choice.
Yeah.
I believe,
we
my choice.
We still have that in the States.
Right.
So.
But, right. And I believe in having my choice. But if they're telling me no, and I didn't even know, listen, I'm into this. And Monica was like a light bulb in my head. I'm like, I didn't even know that if there was something wrong with the child that they wouldn't implant.
Right.
And that's like, for me, hearing that was kind of relieving because it takes the pressure off of me.
Right.
For having to make that decision.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want to, I couldn't say if a child, depending on what the genetic issue was, if it was Down syndrome, I may not say don't implant it. So for me, it's like to know I don't have to make that choice.
Yeah.
I don't want all my choices,
Yeah.
It's 2025 in New York, but I don't want them all. Right. I don't want to have to make them all.
Right.
That was a really nice thing to hear. And I hope that if women are listening to that and you've had that thought, I'm 10 years into this and have done it and didn't know that. So it's to get informed on what you're doing, Maria, and answering these questions for women and men who may be curious about their partner. This is great.
Yeah. I love that you're sharing your experience too. And I think that's, you brought up an excellent point that Monica brought up, which is that there is this sort of information load that you get in doing it through IVF that you would not have had access to before. And, it's not so much about keeping it or not keeping it, even if you didn't have that choice. It's you kind of prepared for, you don't know what kid you're going to get, right? Like you hope it's a healthy kid. But if it's not at a certain, I don't want to say standard because now I'm talking about like a product, but
it's science.
You will have a very different lifestyle, depending on the kid, and you also have a very different marriage, depending on how that kid comes out. And I don't think that's like talked about enough. Monica, when you are, doing this concierge planning for, women that are interested in perhaps exploring opportunities abroad, my question to you is like, do you tell them, first of all, do they have to take the hormones in America? Like, can they get the hormones here before they travel to Greece or Spain?
They can do. Although most women who go abroad with us opt to do the full course of their treatment abroad.
And how long is that? Is that like 10 days, 6 weeks?
Around 10 to 12 days. So most women plan for 2 weeks abroad.
Wow. And then they get implanted?
So the 10 to 12 days is a standard time for an egg stimulation and retrieval.
Okay.
And then if you want to do genetic testing, sometime depending on the type of genetic testing that you get, that can take around 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Many women return to the States, and then depending on the results of their genetic testing, will go back to have their embryo transfer.
Well, if anyone is wondering, flights to Greece are relatively more affordable in the winter than going in June, July, August.
Yep.
That would be insane.
Yeah.
To go 3 times to Greece in the summer.
Yeah. But cost is even after travel, our clients are saving $15,000, $20,000.
That's crazy.
Oh my God. How much is it
crazy,
in the States now is like, if I went back to NYU?
Yeah. So in the States in general, it's about $10,000 for your treatment, between $5,000 and $10,000 for your medication. And then depending on your geography, it can be as much as $1,000, $1,200 annually for storage.
Okay.
So if you're looking at, planning to, freeze your eggs and do so for 5 years, generally in a place like New York, you're looking at around $25,000 for one round of egg freezing.
Wow.
You have to remember most women do around 2 cycles of egg freezing. So it can be quite expensive.
Cost prohibitive.
It's cost prohibitive. When I sought to do this myself, I went to one of the big, academic teaching places in New York City. And that's exactly what they told me. It was $25,000 for one cycle.
Are there payment plans and stuff like that too? Financing?
There wasn't a financing option presented to me. Yeah.
That's a lot.
And you have to pay
how much is it
by
in
the
Greece?
date of your treatment start. So by comparison, abroad treatment is around $3,000. Medications can be as low as $500 a person. I've never seen any of our clients spend more than around $1,800 to $2,000. Most women average around $1,000.
That is crazy.
And then we get our clients, depending on the clinic that they choose, 5 years of storage for free.
And it's the same medication.
It's the same. Yeah.
I keep telling this to people too, because my father-in-law, I'm really happy that the Biden administration capped insulin, because my mom was taking an insulin that cost my mom $1,400 a month. Yeah. My father-in-law was taking the exact same medication in Greece and it was 11 euros a month.
It's just insane.
Even now, like today I read an article about how much Ozempic is in Europe compared to the States. And Ozempic, I think in Europe is like, don't hold me to the number, but somewhere in like the $300-$400 range per month. And here it's $1,200 a month. And I'm like, Jesus,
that's crazy.
these are not finite. Like you can make these chemicals. It's not helium. Yeah. We're not running out of it, So anyway, I think that just says a lot about healthcare in this country. Other than the cost difference between the US and Europe, are there any age restriction differences?
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that IVF was invented in Europe. The first IVF baby ever born was born in Europe. And there are a lot of reasons why almost every advancement in fertility is really coming to us out of Europe. Part of that has to do with the fact that a lot of government funding in Europe is being channeled into fertility research without sort of the shroud of regulation that can often exist here in the US.
Okay.
But the other reason is that Europe really is the center of fertility research because women in Europe tend to have children later in life.
I know.
And for that reason, by almost every metric for women aged over the age of 35 for fertility, for almost every metric, Europe is just kicking the United States. But when it comes to live birth rate and all of the other really critical fertility metrics. And on top of that, if you're a woman who is over the age of 35, if you're a woman who's over the age of 40, over the age of 45, oftentimes you'll encounter clinics in the United States that will not treat you. I think, that was your experience, Sarah.
I'm 44.
Yeah. And those sort of age parameters are much higher in Europe than they are in the United States. In general, in Europe, 50 is where most clinics are going to sort of say this is the limit by which we generally encourage. But legally, they're allowed to treat you up until the age of 55 or even higher in some countries.
Wow.
Yeah. So much more options exist in Europe.
Where am I going again?
Yeah. Thessaloniki.
Thessaloniki.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I received recently was, when to bring up that you've frozen your eggs when newly dating someone. And my response to this is always like, I think this is so exciting. I love that you're doing it, and you should bring it up with the same energy as if someone said, "What's your favorite color?" Right? Men have no problem telling us that, you know, they spend 3 hours a night playing Xbox. I don't think there's anything embarrassing about taking your future lifestyle like in your hands and having some control over it. How do you recommend that single people who are thinking about doing IVF talk about that in their dating?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think what I've seen from my own experiences, from experiences of my girlfriends dating in the city, is that talking about the fact that you are actively or planning to freeze your eggs can remove a lot of pressure from the room when you're dating. I think we come to be surprised to learn that, you know, dating in the city can be challenging. But I think one of the pressures that a lot of men feel is that they might be wasting our time, that it takes time to get to know one another. And then ultimately, if you find out maybe you're not compatible, that did I just waste this girl's time? Did we just spend the past 2 months getting to know each other that ultimately I wasted?
Do you think any
time?
man has ever thought, did I waste this woman's time?
I had a guy friend say to me today, this weekend, he's like, I want to see this girl again, but I don't want to waste her time. And she's.
Wow. Blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
This is new information for me.
Yeah. So I personally think it can remove a lot of pressure from the room, that men feel like we don't have to make this decision right now, that I've decided this is what I want for me. And you can decide if that's what you want for you. And if it makes sense, then it makes sense for us to proceed together. And if not, you haven't sort of risked my ability to consider this option in the future. But more than that, I think that women can feel a lot more empowered going into dating, because there's a lot less pressure for whoever I'm dating in my 30s has to be the person that I ultimately end up with. And I think there's a lot of pressure to just end up with the person that you happen to be dating in your 30s.
Right.
And for me, that's what egg freezing did. For my clients, that's what egg freezing does. It's just the peace of mind. It relieves this weight of every decision in your life has to lead up to when and if you want to have a baby.
You're becoming more intentional in picking the potential parent of your future children.
Exactly right.
Through this process. I love that. In terms of when someone is doing IVF while they are single, should they be dating? So from what I'm gathering, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're doing an IVF round or egg retrieval round, we're talking about 6 weeks, start to finish?
Egg retrieval, 2 weeks. IVF
testing.
Yeah, IVF can be 6 weeks or longer, just depending on sort of when you plan your transfer.
Okay. So let's round it out to 2 months. If you are a single woman who's in that 2-month window, should you be going on dates, or are your hormones so out of whack that maybe they're dating someone different than who you actually are? Like, what is the recommendation here?
It's interesting. Women have vastly different reactions to the hormonal injections that accompany these fertility treatments. I liken it to your response to a hormonal birth control. If you've ever been on a hormonal birth control, some women are wildly different versions of themselves on a hormonal birth control. And some women love it. They feel like it grounds them. It makes them more clear-minded. Some women couldn't tell the difference. I actually couldn't even remember if I took the pill today or not.
Right.
And that's really what those injections feel like. When I went to go freeze my own eggs, a few women heard that I was doing it and said, hey, can I come with you? So it was a group of us that went to freeze our eggs abroad. And we all had vastly different experiences.
What country did you do it in?
We did it in Spain. So my eggs live in Alicante, Spain.
Oh,
actually.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice for them.
Yeah.
Like enjoying the weather.
Yeah. But I couldn't feel, I didn't feel a thing. I didn't think the shots hurt at all. One of the gals on the trip had a mentee bee every day.
A what?
Mental breakdown.
Oh, a mentee bee. I'm learning so much.
These kids today.
I know. Mental breakdown every day.
Wow. She was really going through it.
At least she was in Spain.
At least she was in Spain.
I mean,
Like if I'm gonna have a mental breakdown, I'd rather be in Spain
Right.
than like on the New York City subway.
Yeah. And I really do think that was one of her reflections. We would walk down, go to the beach, and she would feel better.
Yeah.
But it's an emotional thing to go through because you really do feel like your whole life is really happening. These 2 weeks, your whole life is happening. And to have to do that, you know, without a support system, without feeling like you're getting a good deal, without feeling like you can talk about it.
Right.
Those things go a really long way.
Wow. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Someone did ask us online, should I date during the process for IVF via sperm donor? And I let people vote, and the answers were 50-50. You know, half the people that answered said yes, the other half that answered said no. I voted yes, not knowing as much as I've just learned today, but only because I feel like if you know yourself, and I feel like if you're thinking right now, like, I plan to do this, should I date? And it's like, well, why don't you do it?
Right.
And then you can decide in that moment if you feel up to dating. It's okay to take a break if you're having a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
But if you're not having that and you feel like you want to go out, you know what was interesting though was how many people responded to this question talking about a movie, talking about that J-Lo movie. There was a movie where she does IVF, I think, and then she meets a guy and then they start dating. What is the name of this movie?
I'm thinking of the movie Baby Mama.
The Backup Plan in 2010. Oh yeah, and there's also Baby Mama. And I was like, why? I'm like, that's a movie.
Yeah.
Like, we have to remember.
Yeah.
And so.
But I'm with you. I vote yes.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's going on in your life. And ultimately, you should bring your authentic self to dating.
Right.
So I definitely vote yes.
Yeah.
Do you know when you want to use your eggs? Are you waiting for a partner?
I currently have a partner.
Okay.
I currently have a partner. And so I've not tried yet to get pregnant. I think for me, my eggs are...
A backup plan?
Yeah, they're the backup plan. Yeah, exactly right. Thanks, J-Lo.
Yeah.
They're the backup plan. So, but I have PCOS.
Oh.
So I'm anticipating that more than likely I'll have to use them.
Okay.
So I think, probably sometime in the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I love that, you both have this.
Yeah.
And I love that you're creating a community. And I love that apparently you're going to Spain or Greece very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? One bad phone call with a secretary and a couch talk at Ask a Matchmaker has me now going to Crete. Can I go to Crete? No, Athens?
Yeah.
Is it in Athens?
Okay, I love Athens.
We're in Thessaloniki.
Oh, Thessaloniki. I love Thessaloniki.
Yeah. And it's actually the only part of Greece.
Let me tell you something about Thessaloniki. Every time I've been at Thessaloniki, I am like turned on. I don't understand what that city has over me. I like to not visit it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even when I went the last time with my kids,
that'll be great.
Friends,
plus hormones. Yeah.
I know. But the last time I was there, I think, you know what it is? The men at Thessaloniki just look like really manly. Like rugged.
I'm booked. I'm already sold. Stop trying to get her another client. She has one.
What I'm trying to say is that I was there with my kids, I think 2 years ago. My husband was somewhere and I think he was home. He was working and I usually go with the kids first and then he meets us. And, even when I was in college, I used to go to Thessaloniki because I had to go to tournaments or some visit,
How far
whatever.
is Thessaloniki from Athens?
It's like a 6-hour drive. It's the second biggest city in Greece. It has an international airport. Ryanair flies in there and gets some cheap flights. And I have a lot of family from there because my dad is, both my parents have roots from northern Greece. And anyway, so I was visiting one of our maid of honors. We had 3, and staying over her house. And I remember thinking oh yeah, I've got on a lot of fun dates here, fun hookups here. And then I'm kind of walking around with my kids and I'm like, damn, Greek men in general tend to be good looking. The men there are it's not that they're other level. They're not hot. They look like men.
That's exactly what it is.
I'm like, oh, you're disgusting. Let's have sex.
Yeah, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's great.
Apparently.
And it has a nice
It's
nightlife.
I came here for IVF and now I'm not having my husband's baby. I don't know what happened. Luckily, he looks Greek. Ask Venetia. It's good. Okay.
What a fantastic episode, Tara. Thank you so much for sharing your own personal experience. Monica,
Absolutely.
you shared your personal experience. You talked a little bit more about how you help other women who are looking for different reproductive opportunities. Where can people learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, so come to the website, conceivable.com, or check us out on Instagram. We're conceivable.reproductive on Instagram. You know, if you're interested in going abroad, we currently partner in Spain and in Greece. But if you're just interested in going abroad in general, we also help women connect to clinics of their interest abroad. So check us out. We're happy to help you. If you're just curious. We were founded exclusively just to help women find options that work for them. So even if it's not working with us, even if people just have questions and they want to learn, that's why we exist. So
I love that. That is amazing. And Tara, thank you again for joining us this week. I'll see you again next week for our last episode together.
And then I'm off to Greece.
Yeah.
Apparently. And don't forget to follow Tara at Tara Jokes on Instagram. She also has her incredible podcast, Coffee Talk. Go check that out. And of course, if you want to travel to Greece with me, and maybe you don't have an IVF journey, or maybe we can do a double whammy. We have our Greece trips happening that are not IVF related. We have our trip to Crete happening in May. That is a co-ed trip. I'm not attending. It is just a really fun group trip happening in the island of Crete. You get to immerse yourself in the culture, in the food, and in the flora, the beautiful flora and fauna of Crete. And then we are hosting our Paros trip on the island of Paros, obviously, June 28th to July 5th. So if you've got that 4th of July PTO, come and spend it with me. It'll be myself and the rest of the Agape team, and you get to make lots of new best friends, having the best week of your life in the deep blue sea of the Aegean. And you get to enjoy all of that in Paros. You can check out both of those things by visiting the link in the show notes, agapeescapes.com. You can also join us in an upcoming intensive that's not related to Agape Escapes, but our intensive is our monthly group coaching program. You have a friend who did it.
I do. I was about to let you know, one of my friends took your class, and when she found out that I was going to be talking to you today, she gushed about your class. She said it was the best thing she ever did, that you were the big sister she never had, and just that. Absolutely the best money she ever spent. So,
oh my God, best money she ever spent. That's all I need to hear. It is a really great program. I'm really proud of it. We are in our 5th year. It has, shifted a little bit in the last 5 years, but it's something that it's probably the thing I'm most proud of after my kids. Isn't that crazy?
Wow, that's amazing.
Like, I love my matchmaking job, but I really do love helping people learn to articulate better what they're looking for to have the future they've always dreamed of. And that's what Agape Intensive is. It's 3 days, 9 hours. So it's 3 hours each day. Mm-hmm. And it's virtual. Sometimes we do them in person, but it's typically virtual, happens once a month. And then if you graduate, when you graduate, you also gain access to our inner circle office hours that happen every Monday at noon. So if you ever have a question or you want to just vent really quick,
great.
Every Monday at noon, we're available. Someone on my team or myself, we're there for office hours. And you also get the access to the graduate community. So all of our people that have graduated are in a WhatsApp group.
Oh, wow.
Doing real-time advice. It's really great. Well, that was this week's show. Thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and tell a friend. Of course, pre-order my book, Ask a Matchmaker, wherever you buy your books. As we end each week's episode, be lovable, but more importantly, be likable. See you next week.